Hey, Michael Gustin here from Reality Hacker Co. And I just wanted to speak to you today about how to ensure that your energy stays tip top. You know, we live in a world of codependency, in a world where people are constantly sacrificing themselves that they might give to somebody else. But today I'm here to tell you that it's impossible to truly give to somebody what you have not given to yourself. You know, I'm sure if you scroll through Instagram, you'll see a lot of these memes about, I gave too much of myself and this person abused me. And that's true. It's true. Oftentimes, we don't establish boundaries when it comes to those people who have really good hearts. You may have a really good heart and you may have a strong desire to help people. But the truth is, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't ensure that your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health is up to par, you will be taken advantage of. And so my question for you today is, how much of the advantage taking that you get is due to somebody else, or really due to a lack of boundaries that you have allowed yourself to create? And it's okay if you've not established boundaries with yourself. Oftentimes, if you come from a traumatic background, that's very common. It's very common for people who have experienced tons of psychological trauma to not have any sort of boundary establishing mechanisms in place. But today I'm here to tell you that the reason people take advantage of your kind-heartedness and your ability to listen to them and take care of them and love them and encourage them is because you allow it. You allow it. And this isn't some sort of condemnation. This is just acknowledgement. Because the first step to changing anything in our lives is acknowledging and accepting what we are doing, what part we are playing. So my question for you is, what part are you playing in those relationships where you are being taken advantage of, where your time is being taken advantage of? I know for me, in the past, this was very common. It was very common for me to feel like it was necessary for me to be there for people who wanted me to be there for them. But that's not the way it works. You cannot fill somebody else's cup if you haven't filled your own. You can only give to others to the degree that you have given to yourself. So today, here are 3 things that you can begin doing right now to establish these boundaries and begin to live a more full life, to experience less of a drainage. The first thing you can do is kindly establish these boundaries with the people that are taking your energy. It can be a text, it can be a phone call. It's a simple, hey, I acknowledge you, I appreciate you, and I'm sorry that you're dealing with this. Right now, I just don't have the capacity to help you. I need to take care of myself. And as soon as I'm done doing that, I would love to talk to you about what you're dealing with. Honesty is truly the best policy. Oftentimes, we end up in these spaces of regret, remorse, and drained energy just because we haven't had the courage to be honest with the other party. The first step to being honest with somebody else is being honest with yourself. This is one of the ways that you can begin to slowly eradicate those relationships that drain your energy. The second thing you can do is make sure that when you're not in the middle of a conversation, when you're not actively being pulled towards somebody else, that you're filling your own cup, that you're surrounding yourself with material, with audible sounds, with visual sounds, with books, with all sorts of vibes and environments that fill your heart. Because at the end of these moments, you're going to go out into the world and you're going to go back to your jobs, you're going to go into your families, your relationships, your careers, all these different places. And you're still only going to be able to give to the extent that you've given yourself. This is super important to understand. So my question for you in regards to this second mechanism is, how are you filling your cup when nobody else is around? What are you watching when you don't have to be obligated to anybody else? What are you filling your mind with, your spirit with? What's going inside of you? Because what comes in must go out. And if you make it a priority, to fill your own cup, I can guarantee you that when you are obligated to be around other people, it'll be much, much much easier to handle. The third thing you can do is establish a solid, unchanging sense of self-worth that exists regardless of your interactions with other people. Oftentimes, when we are surrounded by energy vampires, what we have done is forsake our own self-worth, and we get caught up in trying to validate ourselves by helping somebody else, and it turns into a vicious cycle. It never ends. The more you begin to find your worth in how you add to people's lives, the more you will suffer. You must establish a self-worth that exists apart from anything you do for anybody else. The more you do this, the more you have a solid sense of self-worth, the easier it will be to acknowledge when somebody is draining your energy and say, hey, you know what? I love you. I appreciate you. I acknowledge you, but I just can't be here for you right now. And guess what? If people get offended by the fact that you don't have the ability to be there for them, that's not your problem. You're worth so much. You are worth so much. And it's a shame to see you degrade yourself based on other people's opinions of you. If you can't serve somebody, you can't serve them. And there's no point in trying to, because here's the whole thing. If you try and serve somebody, if you try and sit there with somebody knowing that you can't help them, you're going to hurt yourself a lot more in the long run. So the first thing, having the courage to be honest with people. Have the courage to be honest with somebody who's draining your energy and saying, look, I love you, I appreciate you, but I just can't be here for you right now. The second thing, what are you filling yourself with when nobody else is watching? A great person once said something to the effect of, character is who we are when nobody else is looking. What are you filling yourself with when you're not obligated to be around anybody else? Are you watching shows that bring you down, that actually take your emotions from you? Or are you involving yourself in things that lift you up, that build you up, that encourage you, that give you strength and inspiration? And the third thing is to establish a self-worth that exists apart from anybody else's opinions to you and the things that you do for them. If you do these three things, I can guarantee you, energy vampires will leave your life, because the only reason they stay is because you allow them. You allow them to stay. And the moment you acknowledge and accept this, everything will change for you. The only reason it continues is because you haven't accepted it yet. So once you acknowledge the fact that, hey, I've allowed my vibe to be lowered by trying to be there for people that I really just can't be there for, you're going to find that it's much easier to acknowledge when you're around somebody who's doing this very thing and say, hey, I love you, I appreciate you, I acknowledge you, but I just can't be here for you right now. If you do this, I can guarantee the dynamics of your relationships are going to change, because you only get in others what you've first given to yourself. So naturally, energy vampires are a reflection of a lack of attention and validation and self-care that we have not given to ourselves. So naturally, when we begin to give ourselves that care, that attention, that validation, that uplifting, that encouragement, we're going to acknowledge when there's people around us that are the complete opposite. And it's going to be easier to navigate those relationships where somebody just wants to take advantage of you. And remember, if somebody gets offended because you can't be there for them, it may hurt, but it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And I can promise you, if you begin to cultivate a spirit of self-worth that exists regardless of what you do for other people, you will find the people that begin to come into your life actually carry the same vibe, the same self-worth, the same validation, and they're not going to steal from you. They're not going to ask you for what you haven't given yourself. The outer world is a reflection of what's going on inside of us. So if we want to make a check as to why these things are going on, look inside. Look inside and you will find the very thing that's causing everything that's going on out here. You do this, a lot of things will change. Talk to you soon.